In today's video, we're going to take some time to go over the Game of the Year 2019 nominees. This info was recently revealed, and we now know the 6 games that are in the running to win Game of the Year 2019. We're also going to be focusing on Death Stranding because Death Stranding is one of those 6 games, but not only that, Death Stranding happens to have the most nominations across all of the different categories, which is really awesome. I'm really happy to see that, and I do want to take a second here for anybody who is wondering as to whether or not I've completed Death Stranding yet. I have not completed it. I am making very good progress, though, and I'm really enjoying my time with the game. I'm kind of savoring it and just making my way through it slowly. I seem to be enjoying the game much more that way. I don't want to rush it, especially, I don't want to rush it just to get a review out there or a final review or final thoughts video out there as quickly as possible. But rest assured that I will be doing a final review, final thoughts video on it when I do, in fact, complete it. Just wanted to let you know that before going any further. But yeah, the 6 games here that are currently nominated for Game of the Year 2019, there is Death Stranding, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Resident Evil 2 Remake, Control, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, and The Outer Worlds. So a very good list right there, and as I'm sure most of you have noticed, there is one game in particular that some people were saying should be on this list, that being Gears 5. It seems that Xbox fans are not feeling very happy at the fact that Gears 5 is not on this list, so I do want to take a minute here to just address that as well and give my thoughts on it. And if I'm being honest, I'm not surprised it's not nominated for Game of the Year. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if it was on this list, but I'm not surprised at the fact that it's not on here, because if I had to guess, and I'm only taking a guess here, if I had to assume as to why it didn't make the Game of the Year 2019 nominees list, it's most likely because it is too much of the same. It is more of the same. Now, maybe you could make that argument for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, but the truth is, I'm not too familiar with Super Smash Bros. Like, I can't say exactly what the difference between Ultimate is compared to the last game. I'm not going to speak about that because I am completely ignorant to it. I do not know. What I do know is that it is regarded as a very high-quality game, and so is Gears 5. Gears 5 is regarded as a very high-quality game as well, but I have done a little bit of research into Gears 5. I have seen Gears 5. Granted, I haven't played it myself, but I think it's safe to say that, yeah, it's more of the same. You know what I mean? Like, it's unfortunate that Xbox hasn't had a single Game of the Year nomination this entire generation, and I say that's unfortunate not because I feel as though any of their games are necessarily deserving of it. I just think it's unfortunate that it's had to be that way. Like, they shouldn't be in that position, and of course there's going to be some people who say that's because there's some type of bias, but if you look at the way these nominees are actually decided upon, I don't necessarily think there's a bias. I think it just is, in reality, most people are just not looking at the games that Microsoft is producing. Even the AAA games such as Gears 5, for as high quality as they are, I don't think anybody's really looking at Gears 5 and saying, I think that game is deserving of Game of the Year, because when you think about games that win Game of the Year, they really have to truly do something that pushes the envelope in some way. Like, it just pushes them over the edge to where it's like, yeah, this game, like, if you think about last year, it was between Red Dead 2 and God of War, and it doesn't matter who won at that point, because both of those games did truly amazing things. And I went over that. I talked about why I believe God of War was probably a little bit more deserving than Red Dead Redemption 2 in certain ways. But in this case, yeah, it's unfortunate, I guess, that Gears 5 isn't on the list. But again, I'm not sitting here thinking I'm really surprised. One thing I am a little bit surprised about, in a good way, though, is I'm happy to see that a game like Control actually is nominated for Game of the Year, because I did play that game. I do feel as though it is pretty underrated. It was actually a really awesome experience. I did platinum the game, and I just didn't see really a whole lot of people talking about it. And, maybe I'm partially to blame for that. It's not like I was sitting here talking about it on my channel, but it was a great game, and I think it honestly did enough unique things, I think, with the gameplay that, yeah, it should be sitting up here for potential Game of the Year winner. Some people are saying that Devil May Cry 5 should be on here, which I haven't played it, but yeah, it seems like maybe that game should have actually been on this list. Maybe that is another, situation where people are upset because it's like, how is DMC5 not nominated for Game of the Year. But, just speaking to Gears 5, I can't say I'm surprised. I'm not necessarily happy it's not nominated. I wouldn't have been shocked if it was nominated either. I just feel as though that when you think about, we're going to go over how the voting process is done, how these decisions are made, it just seems to me like that wasn't the game that was at the forefront of people's minds when they talk about potential Game of the Year winner for 2019. But talking about Death Stranding here for a minute, there's a lot of people that are really upset that Death Stranding is not only nominated for Game of the Year, but these are all of the categories that it's currently in the running to potentially win during the Game Awards. There's Game of the Year, Best Art Direction, Best Audio Design, Best Game Direction, Best Score/Music, Best Narrative, Best Performances ×2, which features Mads Mikkelsen and Norman Reedus, and also Best Action Adventure Game. So that is a lot of categories, and if I'm not mistaken, I think that it has the most nominations throughout every category, and I'm really happy for that because honestly, people can hate on this game all they want, they can say whatever they want, the game doesn't have to be for you, but for those of you who have experienced it, who did give it a chance, those of you who've played more than 30 hours of this game, you know there's something awesome here. Now, granted, not everybody who has completed the game necessarily feels the same way, but what I'm trying to say is that Death Stranding, in my opinion, does enough things differently, and it takes enough risk in certain areas that I think it does, in my opinion, it sticks the landing. Now, not everybody's going to see it that way. Can't sit here and necessarily say it's a 10 out of 10 game because I haven't completed it yet. I can't even sit here and say that it would be my personal Game of the Year because I haven't completed it yet. But from what I've seen of it so far, I can certainly understand why it is nominated for Game of the Year, why it has, I think, 9 total nominations, and I would also be very understanding of why it could end up winning Game of the Year, and I think that it would be deserving of it based off of what I've played so far. Maybe my thoughts on that will change when I complete it, but if they do change, something tells me that they're only going to change for the better, and I'm going to be completely convinced that it's going to be deserving of Game of the Year. Now, with that being said, I don't think that it would be a problem for any other game on this list to win. We do have technically the Outer Worlds here, which now is, I don't know if the IP is necessarily owned by Microsoft. I haven't looked into that. We know that it was available on multiple platforms, but at least there's something there for Microsoft that they can feel proud of, where you guys do own Obsidian now. They are your first party studio, so you do have something that is worth celebrating. Maybe it's upsetting to them that it wasn't Gears 5, but it is what it is. You can't really do anything about it. So one last thing I want to focus on in this video, I don't want to drag it out too long, but we do have to acknowledge this. We can't have this conversation without acknowledging this. A lot of people are out here claiming that the only reason why Death Stranding is nominated for Game of the Year but also has the most nominations is because of Jeff Keighley, because he really likes Kojima, he's really good friends with him, he admires him. So naturally, Jeff Keighley is the one making all of these decisions, and he just decided that, you know what, Death Stranding is going to be nominated for Game of the Year, it's going to be guaranteed to win Game of the Year, and it's also going to have the most nominations across all categories because he said so. I want to go over this with you guys and let you know that that is not how this works. Jeff Keighley doesn't make these decisions. Okay, in fact, he doesn't have any say over these things. And it's important for people to understand this because if Death Stranding does end up winning Game of the Year, the conversations that are going to ensue after that, it's going to be pretty annoying because you're going to see a lot of people that say, oh, he only won because his name is Hideo Kojima, not because he's been creating great gaming experiences since 1986. He only won because his name is Hideo Kojima. He's only nominated because his name is Hideo Kojima. Because when you look at Death Stranding, if any other developer made a game like this, people wouldn't be giving it the same credit. That's not true at all. And I can say that genuinely. If I was playing Death Stranding and Kojima's name wasn't on it and he wasn't involved with it, and it was a different studio that made it, and a different director and whatnot, I would still think this is a pretty unique game, and I'm actually quite surprised at how much I'm actually enjoying it, and I'm quite surprised at how different it's trying to be in the AAA space. I can say that wholeheartedly, genuinely, truthfully. But anyway, it says here, if you look on the Game Awards website, it has a frequently asked questions section. And one of the questions here is, how are nominees selected for the Game Awards? And it says nominees for most categories of the Game Awards are chosen by an international jury of over 80 global media and influencer outlets selected for their history of critical evaluation of video games. The full list of outlets is available here, which I'll have this link down below so you can check it out for yourself if you're interested. Each voting outlet completes a confidential, unranked ballot based on the collective and diverse opinion of its entire editorial staff, listing out its top 5 choices in each category. Ballots are tabulated, and the 5 games that appear on the most ballots are put forth as nominees. In the event of a tie, 6 or more nominees will be announced in a category. Game Awards producer Jeff Keighley is not a member of the jury and does not vote on the nominees. So there you go. If for people wondering about the nominations, I hate to break it to you, Death Stranding isn't sitting up there because Jeff Keighley wanted it that way. Death Stranding's sitting up there because the majority of people voted for not only Death Stranding, but the other 5 games that are also there as well. Okay? Now, the other thing I wanted to go over here before ending this video is the question here is, who selects the winners, right? Because you already know that if Death Stranding were to win, people are just going to say it's because Jeff Keighley made it that way, because he demanded it, he made sure of it, whatever. And the answer to this question is winners are determined by a blended vote between the voting jury, which is 90% of the vote, and public fan voting, which is 10% of the vote. Fans can vote for their favorite games once every 24 hours on thegameawards.com and via Google search, voting across all categories, and also via Twitter, DM, and Discord in select categories. In China, fans can vote on the winners via, I can't even pronounce that, I don't even know what that is. Fan voting closes on Wednesday, December 11th at 6 p.m. PT. So there you go. Okay? Jeff Keighley is not the one voting here, and if he is, he's doing it through the public voting forum, which is, it accounts for 10% of it. Now, I'm just making this video because I can't help but see a lot of people are mad at the fact that Death Stranding is nominated for Game of the Year. They're especially mad knowing it is the most nominated game. And they're really, really mad at the idea that Death Stranding could in fact win. And you already know that it doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. If Death Stranding wins Game of the Year, everybody and their mother is going to try to convince you that it's not because it was a great game. It's not because it is doing things differently. It's not because there's actually something really deep and meaningful there that creates a unique and just awesome experience for anybody who takes the time to experience it. It's not because there's just a lot of heart and soul in the game, right? It's not because it's one of the best looking games. It's not for any of these reasons. It's simply because it's Hideo Kojima. And because of that, there's just, he automatically wins. There's just that bias, right? And I'm just, that's just the reality of the situation. And I think it's unfortunate because it's one thing if you want to sit here and say that maybe you believe Hideo Kojima is a little bit overrated. That's fine. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, right? Anybody can feel how they want to feel. Doesn't matter. But I think it's a little bit, or maybe really unfair, to sit here and think that the only reason a game like Death Stranding is nominated is because people love Hideo Kojima more than the games he makes. Do people love Hideo Kojima? Of course they do. But at the end of the day, the reason why he gets the praise and recognition he does in the industry is not because of his name, okay? It's because of what he has done within the industry and what he is still doing with games like Death Stranding. And that's all it comes down to. So that's going to do it for the video. It did turn out a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but hopefully you guys did enjoy it. It's unfortunate for Xbox fans that, Gears 5 didn't make the Game of the Year nominations here, but I don't think anybody can argue that every game that's on this list of the 6 games, I think that they're all pretty deserving, and I would be saying the same thing, honestly, genuinely. I would be saying the same thing if Gears 5 was also featured on this. I know people think that I have this extreme bias, but listen, Gears 5 was a high-quality game. I haven't played it, so I can only speak so much about it, but I hope that going into next generation, Xbox can bring out some more, bigger hitting games, some more hard hitting games, that it won't be such a weird situation if we, I don't want to see another generation where Xbox doesn't have a single game nominated for Game of the Year throughout the entire generation. I don't want to see that again. Seems like they may be onto something here with the Outer Worlds, because that did make it, so who knows going forward. But best of luck to all of the games nominated. At this point, I want you guys to let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think about the Game of the Year nominees? Which one are you hoping wins? I did put out a poll recently, which I will recommend all of you go check out and vote for yourself, so maybe we can make a separate video talking about what you guys think and what my audience thinks, which game they believe is going to end up winning. So let me know your thoughts down below. Leave the video a like if you did enjoy it, if you found it informative, or if you just enjoyed my commentary. It really helps it out. Lets me know you guys enjoy the content. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.